Gloria in excelsis Deo.
If you're a practicing Catholic, you probably know that you live in a diocese whose leader is a bishop, and you also know that your diocese is composed of local parishes led by priests. But when looking at the boundaries of Catholic territorial administration, this is really just the beginning, because there are actually dozens of different types of religious boundaries that overlap with one another, such as those between Eastern and Western churches, as well as various religious orders. Let's start on the level we all know, which is the diocese. And because I currently live in the Diocese of Columbus, I'll use that as an example. The norm for every diocese is for it to be divided into individual territorial parishes, which might encompass one church with a single pastor, or multiple smaller churches which are collectively a single parish, and which probably coordinate masses and sacramental life. Although you, as an individual Christian, may choose to fulfill your Sunday obligation at any Catholic liturgy in your diocese, and you might even consider yourself to be part of one parish community or another, in terms of church law, you are considered to belong to the territorial parish where you actually live, which is your canonical parish. Between the parish level and the diocesan level, Canon 374 of the Code of Canon Law also permits bishops to add another administrative layer to help organize the various parishes towards common action. For instance, the Diocese of Columbus contains what are formerly known as vicariates foranae, or more commonly just deaneries, led by a vicar. Above the level of parishes, deaneries, and dioceses, we move up to provinces, which contain multiple dioceses. Like the deaneries, though on a macro level, they are organized to help collaboratively promote the common good. At the province level, the Diocese of Columbus sits within the province of Cincinnati, alongside the Diocese of Toledo, Cleveland, Youngstown, Steubenville, and the Diocese of Cincinnati itself, which features a metropolitan bishop who has a dual role both as the leader of the Diocese of Cincinnati and the presiding bishop over the entire ecclesiastical province. Ordinarily, canon law does not permit an archbishop to have direct control over the diocese of his neighbor bishops, even though he is the head of the provincial region. However, the archbishop is more directly connected to the Holy See in Rome as a safeguard against abuses. He is permitted to engage in certain special ecclesiastical functions anywhere in his province, and he receives a pallium, which designates him as an archbishop. In this case, it's easy to see that the province is essentially just covering the boundaries of the U.S. state of Ohio. And although the city of Columbus contains the secular leadership of the state, the ecclesiastical locus of control is in Cincinnati. But neither the shape of the province nor the decoupling of secular and ecclesiastical power are automatic features. If we fly over to Colorado, on the territory side you can see that the singular Diocese of Wyoming has been tacked on to the state of Colorado and the province of Denver, where reigns the Archbishop of Denver, the capital of Colorado. Interestingly, the addition of Wyoming is relatively new in church history terms, having been done in 1940, prior to which it was part of the province of Dubuque, and before that the province of St. Louis. So now you know that you live in a parish, possibly a deanery, definitely a diocese, and also a province. But provinces are in turn organized into even bigger super-regions called, unimaginatively, just regions. The Holy See permits the creation of these regions in countries that have a lot of churches, just in order to keep track of everything, if the Conference of Bishops of a particular country requests it. As part of the Diocese of Columbus, I sit within Region 6, which encompasses the provinces of Cincinnati and Detroit, whereas Region 2, being more numerous, contains only one province, while the sparsely populated Region 13 contains 3 provinces. Alright, enough about the Western Church, because it's time to go east, liturgically speaking. In my previous video on the Eastern Catholic rites and churches, I talked about the various ritual forms, which are now in full communion with the Catholic Church. But now, let's go into more detail about how that actually works. Firstly, rather than dioceses, Eastern churches are normally grouped into what are called eparchies or archeparchies. The Byzantine Catholics give us 4 eparchies distributed across the US, and here in Columbus, we are within the jurisdiction of the Eparchy of Parma. This means that if I have a neighbor who is a Byzantine Catholic, while I'm a Latin Rite Catholic, we might be physically neighbors, but technically answer to different bishops, despite being in the same geographic area. The Byzantine Catholic boundaries seem to be even less concerned about state lines than the diocesan ones, and the Archeparchy of Pittsburgh swoops up to cut off huge chunks of Ohio. Maybe there's some bishops out there gerrymandering their eparchies, although if we switch to the Ukrainian Catholic map, it gives us something totally different, fully including Ohio within the Eparchy of St. Josaphat, but leaving the whole West as this monolithic Eparchy of St. Nicholas. Many of the eastern jurisdictions seem to have these gigantic boundaries for areas where they don't have very many parishes. In this vein, the Chaldean Catholic Church just slices up the US directly in half. while the Armenians or the Melkites have just one eparchy covering the whole country, and the Romanians even add Canada in for good measure. It's a similar story with the personal ordinariate of the Chair of St. Peter, or what's sometimes erroneously called the Anglican Rite, intended for Anglicans who want to retain their liturgical tradition while coming into full communion with the Catholic Church. Since the personal ordinariate only has 36 parishes across the US and Canada, it doesn't yet make sense to break it up into anything more granular. Nor is it properly speaking a different rite, but it's considered a special use of the liturgy within the Latin Rite. So now we've covered the Latin diocese, the Eastern eparchies, and the personal ordinariate. So that means we must be done, right? Not so fast. First, let's talk about religious orders. Religious orders practice their particular charism of work or prayer in concert with the local Catholic bishop and by his permission. Sometimes they are simply large national organizations without specific regions, but when they are more numerous, they are generally subdivided into specific geographic groups. The priestly order of Jesuits divide themselves into 5 provinces across the US and Canada, with a provincial in charge of each region, who reports to the Superior General in Rome. Likewise, the mendicant orders of friars also have provinces and provincials. The Dominicans are neatly divided into the western, central, eastern, and southern provinces across the US, though other mendicants like the Capuchin Franciscans have a bit of a messier map. Interestingly, they don't even stick to present-day national boundaries, with the province of Mexico retaining the state of Texas as part of its territory, even though it allows the St. Conrad province to build friaries there. There's an even more scattered situation with the Benedictine order of monks and sisters, where instead of provinces, they are divided into federations. But these federations aren't really geographical, with abbeys and priories connected to a common vestigial connection to specific millennia-old European monastic communities. All of this raises the question for me of how many Catholic jurisdictions actually overlap where I live. As a layman, I of course can't really be said to belong to any of them except my diocese, but they are all still Catholic. I think a generous estimate would say that there are at least 12 regions, between the Eastern Catholics who have an actual presence in Ohio, the well-established religious orders with clearly defined borders or ministry in Ohio, and of course the diocese itself. I could also absolutely pump those numbers up by including smaller orders like the Apostles of Jesus, who have this delightful logo on their website, or by including every Eastern Catholic jurisdiction, even if it doesn't have parishes in my area. Thanks for following me on this completely random bureaucratic adventure. I'm pretty sure I'm missing tons more Catholic regions, so let me know if you have more ideas. And if you're curious about all the diocesan boundaries discussed in this video, there's a USCCB tool linked in the description that interactively lets you see them.